Hey you guys, and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm here for a video that I've been planning on doing for a long time, but before I get started with that, I just wanted to let you guys know again, I talked about this in my past video, but I'm probably going to be mentioning it in the next few videos. I have a giveaway going on right now on my Twitter account, and hopefully I'll be doing just a YouTube one too, because I know not everyone is on Twitter, but if you are, I am picking two winners, and each winner will get their choice of a book from the book depository for up to $20. So if the book depository ships to you, you can enter, and the criteria for entering are retweeting the giveaway tweet and following me on Twitter, subscribing to my channel, so if you're already subscribed, you're almost there, and optionally for an extra entry, you can tell me your most anticipated summer release. So I just wanted to let you guys know that because, you know, free book, why not? And yeah, hope to see you entering on Twitter. Like you can see from the title, I'm going to be talking about books that I want to see made into a movie or a TV show, and I have very particular requests for which ones I want to see as TV shows and which ones I want to see as movies. There's so many books I want to see made into some sort of TV movie thing, and when I went to make the list, it got so long to the point that I was like, there's no way I can make just one video about this. I'm going to have to make multiple. Don't know when I'm making the other one, but yes, there will be a part 2. If you see that some stuff is missing, it's because I had to split it up. They're both gonna be a good time. There will probably be a part 3 eventually, but for now I've only planned 2, and let's just get started right off the bat with all the books that I want to see. So let's just get started. Oh no. Oh my god. Luna just tried to eat my jewelry. Like fully tried to eat my jewelry. This is what it's like being a cat owner. She just tries to eat everything that she's not supposed to eat. Made into movies and TV. I bet you're probably wondering what that was. You're probably like, was that Maria's cat? No, it couldn't be Maria's cat. It's probably a demon. And actually, I think the demon and the cat are the same thing. So you wouldn't be wrong if you thought it was a demon. I'm sorry if I'm suddenly closer to the camera, but it was too far away, so I brought it closer to me. Love the lack of continuity here on MariaMuses, and I hope you're enjoying it too. So let's just get into the list. We've procrastinated long enough. We've had a lot of technical difficulties, and now we're back on track. The first book series that I want to see made specifically into a TV show, I don't want movies, is the Throne of Glass series. I think at some point it was picked up to be a TV show or a movie or something, and then it just never went anywhere. Oh my god. There's a cat. I don't know if this is a hot take or not, but I prefer Throne of Glass to ACOTAR. I haven't read Crescent City yet, so can't make any comments on that, but between ACOTAR and Throne of Glass is my favorite. Probably because I read it first and I just liked the setup a lot more. I feel like it subverted a lot of tropes and also used a lot of tropes at the same time, and that was really cool. We saw some really interesting stuff. Don't get me wrong. Love ACOTAR. Another one of my favorite series, but Throne of Glass is just top tier for me. I really loved it. I loved the plot, loved the characters. I just loved everything about it. The writing, just everything. So I want to see this made in a TV show so badly. I want to see who would be cast. I would want to see how they would visually adapt everything, you know, the world, all the traveling times, the training scenes, the assassin stuff. I want to see it all. I would love that. So that's my first one. Throne of Glass is one of my favorite series of all time, probably in my top 3. I just adored it. I read it last year and it just really resonated with me. I know some people don't vibe with Sarah J. Maas's books, and that's totally your prerogative, but it made me question so many things about, you know, how I perceive life and what I want to do with my life and my motivations and my desire to make change in the world and, you know, my personality and my femininity and like it just so many things. It made me think so much about so many aspects of my life, and I think that's what a good book does, and that's what this book did for me. So that's why I love it so much. But you know, not everyone is going to interact with the same material in the same way, so I respect it, but I loved it. I definitely recommend trying it if you are interested, and if you don't like it, that's okay. You're breaking my heart a little bit, but that's okay. Point is, I think it would be so visually interesting. Yeah, like I said, so many action sequences, so many cool aspects of the world that I would like to visually see, but I would only want to see it if it was well done. Like, I could see how this could become one of those really badly adapted fantasy shows, and I don't want that. Like, I want a well-adapted fantasy show. So I'm really happy that ACOTAR is getting an adaptation. It's so exciting that Sarah J. Maas is going to be a part of writing it and a part of just like really, really involved in the process, and I cannot wait to see it because, like I said, love ACOTAR so much. I just love Sarah J. Maas's writing. She really strikes a chord with me. I feel like she writes books that I really learn a lot from, and they make me think. And also, some of them are a little saucy, and we all love a little saucy. Well, no, we don't all love a little saucy. I love a little sauciness in the books. So I'm so excited for that, but everyone's sleeping on Throne of Glass, and I want Throne of Glass to be a thing I can watch. The second is Raybearer, and I want this to be made into a movie. I think this would be such a gorgeous movie. If you don't know what this book is about, it is a West African inspired fantasy, very folklore, folktale vibes. We have our main character, Tracy, who has grown up kind of isolated from everyone, and even from her mother, essentially. Her mother only visits her once in a while to see what progress she's made in terms of her tutoring. Her mother has these really weird expectations for her to learn certain things and do certain things, and so she comes, observes her, and then leaves. And Talia has these powers. She can get memories from things that she touches, and so once she turns a certain age, she's still pretty young, her mother sends her to the castle to become one of the young prince's 12, I think it is. It's been a bit since I read this. And so essentially, once you love the prince and the prince loves you, and he has to kind of love a person from each province, I think, you heart bond or soul bond, and then the prince will become immune to a variety of different types of death. So he'll soul bond with someone, and then he can't drown, and then he soul bonds with someone else, he can't be poisoned. Then you're all very connected, and you're very involved, and you love each other, and you really care about each other. So but her mother, when she sends her there, magically places a wish on her that once she soul bonds with the prince, that she'll try to kill him, or that she will kill him. Her mother wants her to kill the prince. So we get an intro when she's a child, and then it progresses to once she's like later in her teens. And I loved this book. It was one of my favorite books of last year. I recently got approved for a NetGalley of Redemptor, which is the sequel. This is a duology, and I am so excited to read it. I've been postponing it because I just loved the first book so much that I'm trying to hold on a little longer to this anticipation of the second book, but I loved it. It was wonderful, and I feel like the imagery will be so beautiful. The castle and the journey throughout the lands and the mystical creatures and the tasks that they're set to do, I think would just translate so well in a movie. And it's a short book, so I feel like a movie would be the best choice for this, because otherwise I think in a TV show it might be a little too drawn out. But I'm not opposed to a TV show. It is possible if they just expand on some of the scenes and some of the moments, some of the setup. I think it could be made into a TV show, but I think it has a better movie arc than it does a TV show arc. But number one, I think you should go read this book if you haven't, because it's insane. It's so good. It is an amazing YA novel. Sometimes I read YA novels and I'm like, maybe now that, I'm technically a young adult, but young adult tends to be written for people in high school. I read it and then I'm like, oh, maybe I'm not into this genre anymore. And then I get really sad because I used to love it. But then I read something like Raybearer. I'm like, no, this genre is for me. I love it. It is so good and I cannot recommend it enough. So yes, make this into something. Someone who, please do it, please. The next is one I've talked about before, but I would love the Brown Sisters trilogy by Talia Hibbert to be made into a set of movies. So I want 3 movies, each following one of the sisters. Apparently we're going to get some more books, like spin-offs from the series. Very excited for that. But for now, I've read the whole trilogy and it is amazing. It is just incredible. I have a whole video dedicated to talking about the book, spoiler free, so I will link that down below so I can tell you more about the plot of each book. That's not what I'm here to do now, but I just think she does romance so incredibly well. I think that is representation in so many aspects that we need, and I love it. I am obsessed with the second book. The second book is my favorite, although obviously I love the first and the third, and I just want to see movies. I would like to call Kevin Netflix right now and request that he makes these into movies, because they are so good, and I want a rom-com like this on Netflix. Next, I would like to see Legendborn by Tracy Deonn as a TV show. I think there are going to be multiple books in the series. It's at least going to be a duology, if not a trilogy or more, and I think it would be done so well in a TV show. So our setup is We have our main character, Bree, whose mother died and she's really, really grieving, but to kind of get away from her dad, and she doesn't really want to share her grief, even though, I mean, they have a loving relationship, but it's complicated. And she decides to go as a high schooler to this high school program on a college campus. I think it's the UNC college campus. On her first day or something, she witnesses a magical attack that she thinks is related to her mother's death. And so she goes on a quest to join this magical society and learn more about her mother's death. And she's like competing. So it's an Arthurian inspired YA fantasy because it's kind of this order in which someone is an Arthur and someone is a Lancelot. And the way that Tracy Deonn brings in history and like America's racist history into a part of the fantasy plot is so well done. It's so smart, and the different kinds of magic, it's just so good. It's such a smart, intelligent, intentional, and well executed book, and I truly loved it. I think it would be so good as a TV show. It would be that kind of like learning magic, learning how to fight, competition, at least for the first season, lots of revelations, lots of fun quests and tasks, and I think it would be so good as a TV show. I would love it. It wouldn't have to be a super drawn out TV show. We don't need 24 episodes, but a good like 8-episode TV show. Mwah. I think it would be beautiful, and I want it. I want it for us, and you want it too, you just don't know it. If you haven't read this book, go read it. Next, one of my favorite books of all time is The Night Circus by Erin Morgenstern. I adore The Night Circus. I think it's so good and beautiful and whimsical and magical, and I want to reread it. I haven't read it in forever. I think it would make such a good movie. I think the set could be so beautiful. I think if we got the right director and producer and just cinematographer, it would just be such an artsy, beautiful movie to watch. Again, whimsical, dreamy, magical. I think it would just be such a good movie if the right people were in it, and it would become probably one of my like favorite movies to watch. It's such a well-written story, and it's such an interesting story, and again, such a beautiful story with so much beautiful imagery. We have the Night Circus as a backdrop, which would be super cool. You have this underlying subplot. It could be gritty, but also whimsical. I want it. I want it as a movie so badly. I'm not going to tell you what it's about because it's been out for a while, so you've probably already read it, and if you haven't, I think it's better to not know anything going in and just to let the story captivate you. Next, another movie I want to see is She Who Became the Sun by Shelley Parker Chan. This book has not come out yet, so this is a little unfair of me to be putting on this list, but I'm going to put it on here anyway because I loved it. I adored this book. I periodically think about this book, which I think is a good sign that it was a great book, and I think it would be so good as a movie. Again, if it was super well done and people put a lot of effort into it and made it a faithful adaptation, this book brings up so many moral questions and so many philosophical questions. You know, there's so much moral gray area in this book, but not in a judgmental way. It's just genuinely you're trying to figure out what is morally right, what is morally wrong, what are you willing to sacrifice to get what you want, what is the role that fate plays in our lives, and how much should we listen to what we think fate wants for us versus what we want for ourselves. Can you steal somebody else's fate? It's so many questions, and I love it. I know some of the descriptions at least had Mulan in the summary of what it's kind of like, and yes, in a literal way towards the beginning, but it's so much more than that. And I love Mulan, but this is just such an exceptional book. Definitely pre-order it. Definitely read this. I want to see this as a film so badly. I think it would be so cool, so badass, so gritty, gruesome, difficult to watch in some parts, but also really important and really powerful. You have these storylines that are parallel for a while and then intersect, and seeing that happen would be so cool in movie form, and I want it. Next, I want a TV show based off of the Gallagher Girls series by Ali Carter, which was one of my favorite series growing up. To this day, it's still probably one of my favorite series that I read growing up. I adored this series. I think it was such a powerful series for me to read, just because you have these girls who are so badass and so intelligent and fairly logical. I mean, obviously sometimes they make mistakes. They're still they're human and they're teenagers, but I felt like I could relate to these characters more and kind of aspired to be like them. But essentially the setup, if you haven't read the series, you definitely should. We're following Cami Morgan, who is a spy in training, essentially. So she goes to a spy school. Her mother is like a pretty powerful spy who I think leads the spy school. And yeah, they speak a bajillion languages. They learn all these cool spy techniques that are so fun. And the first book is I Tell You I Love You, But Then I Have to Kill You. And it's when she kind of falls for a normal boy who is not a spy. And you think that's going to be the premise for the rest of the series. You're like, oh, is this what it's going to be? No, there's so much more to it than that. There's so much going on. It's so well constructed. It's not too drawn out. It's well researched, in my opinion. I just love these books. They made me feel so cool and so powerful growing up. They made me more observant as a person because there are observations that the characters make that obviously, you know, it's Sherlock-esque in the sense that like, I saw you limping, which implies that you are from here and you did this and that or the other. And that made me want to be so cool and also be able to do that. I honestly think it inspired me to be more observant growing up. But yeah, it's just such a good series, and I think it would make such a fun teen show. I think it would be so well done. You have romance, you have badass women, you have some cool parent figures that we could follow their plot lines too. So many cool, not heists, but like, you know, tasks and quests and missions, spy missions, and it would just be so cool. Cannot recommend it as a series enough, but I also think it would translate so well as a fun teen show. The last book I have on this list that I want to be made into a movie is Entreat Me by Grace Draven. I read Entreat Me last year, and it was kind of my intro into more sexy romance books, but I love that this is what introduced me to it because it's exactly what I want. I have learned I'm not meant for a book that is just a lot of saucy scenes mixed with a little bit of plot. I like a plot, an extensive plot. The main focus of the book is the plot with some steamy scenes interspersed throughout the book. You know, the romance is a plot line, but it's not just saucy times because I don't like it. It doesn't work for me. Totally valid if you like it. It's just not for me. I'm so glad this was my introduction for my foray into adult fantasy romance because it was so good. I really loved it. I was so invested in the characters. I felt like everyone had a personality. It wasn't just a bunch of blobs who were falling in love. Like, they each had their own thing going. There's a little bit of a Taming of the Shrew element here, a little bit of Beauty and the Beast. It's so good, and I loved it, and I had such a good time reading it. The writing style is so good. Again, the characters are good, and I feel like that is ultimately what's most important for me. Plot is also important, but I think having solid characters and solid writing can really make up for a basic plot, and since this is obviously, like I said, inspired by Taming the Shrew and Beauty and the Beast, it is a little bit of a basic plot, but I think it's so well done, and I loved it, and it was so good, and I cannot recommend it enough. But as a movie, I think it would be so cool. I think it would be a little different than some movies we've seen. You know, it is a romance at its core, like that is what it is, but it's also a fantasy romance at its core, and I don't think we get a lot of movie adaptations of that. I'm not saying we don't get fantasy adaptations with romance, but this one is a romance. That is the genre it is a part of, and it's not a contemporary romance. It's not a Regency romance. It's a fantasy romance, and I would love to see that translated on screen. I think it would be such a fun movie, and I want to see it. I want to see it done, and I want to be there for it, and I want to watch it with my eyes and have a good time. So I hope you guys liked this video. I hope you did, because I am planning on doing a part 2, so hit that like button if you want to see a part 2, and let me know what books you want to see made as TV shows or movies. Do you have a preference for whether or not you like something to be made into a TV show or a movie, or you kind of just want it to be adapted? I'd love to know. Or do you agree with me about any of these? Are you gonna go pick up any of these books? Let me know. I'd really love to hear from you. Hit that subscribe button if you want to see more videos from me. I have a lot of fun content coming soon that I'm working on planning out and being able to film. They're a little bit more time consuming than some of my other videos, but I'm really excited for you to see them. As always, I leave links to my social media down below, like my Instagram, my Goodreads, my Twitter, all that fun stuff. I also always leave links to petitions and donation platforms for current events happening around the world. So at the moment, I have Black Lives Matter petitions and donation platforms. I have things for India's COVID crisis. I have things for API donation resources. I also have links for things happening in Palestine right now. So please go check those out. If you can't donate, at least share the information, because sharing is a huge part of getting the word out there and then getting more donations. So as always, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in my next video. Bye.